Hello and welcome to another edition of Convict Inc. I'm your host, Robert Rosso. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you like the video, push like, and I'm asking everybody, and you'll understand in a minute why. If you know any law enforcement, prosecutors, legislators, judges, state and federal, I would like you to please get this video to them. It's important and you'll understand why. Just bear with me while I give some context, do the backstory, etc. Many of you have wondered why I went to Chelsea Handler concert on Monday. You feel that my views might not align with her, etc. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I will say it was an outstanding show. She was very funny and she was a nice lady. Had a meet and greet after. She took a photo with a t-shirt of a nonprofit that I'm involved with, and that has everything to do with this video. The nonprofit I'm referring to is called SCARS, Saving Children and Reviving Souls. Real quick, go to the website savingkids.rocks. It'll explain more about SCARS, the mission. Anyway, while I was a pretrial detainee in the Sebastian County Detention Center in 1997, going through trial on the case that ultimately led to a life sentence, I was in the cell block with a friend of mine by the name of Brent Toomey. Brent, like myself, was a two-time loser, two-time drug offender. I think he had a pistol back there somewhere when he was a kid. But like me, he was not going to cooperate with the state or the government, whatever. He had a state case at the time. Brent was my cellie when I was found guilty and sentenced to life without parole. What happened to me did have a profound effect on him and made him really take a look at his life, where it was going, and that he needed to take advantage of the contacts he had, legal contacts he had, and get out of crime. Stop dealing drugs, stop living the criminal lifestyle. I went to Leavenworth in September of 1998. Brent went to the Arkansas Department of Corrections. He got out 2 years later, moved to Rogers, Arkansas, where he helped his mom with her drywall business. He had a few little setbacks, I think that'd be fair to say. Nothing being sent back to state prison or anything. But in those setbacks, he wrote me letters. And in the letter, I told him, Brent, listen, you know what it is. You know what you got. You know what you have to do. And he did absolutely turn his life around. He is now the owner of a multi-million-dollar drywall company and many other things. Brent and I kept in contact all throughout my prison term. There was a few times when we went a couple years when I didn't hear from him or he didn't hear from me. When he knew I was actively using, he gave me a choice one time, and said that he couldn't have nothing to do with me because of the business he had, and I totally respected that. As a matter of fact, at that time I was involved in illegal drug dealing again, so he did the right thing. We caught up later when I got myself clean, and he's been nothing but a rock the whole time I was in the joint. And this is where this is going. So, when I was at Butner in 2007, Butner FCI 1, I've said many times that it was a different prison. That is, there was a lot of sex offenders in Butner. The Bush administration, I think led by a former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez, made Butner like the hub of their sex offender programs. A lot of different type of sex programs down in the Butner prison complex in general. Remember, the Butner prison complex has 5 prisons. That's the FMC, Federal Medical Center, 2 FCIs, a low, and a CAM. I was a trash orderly at Butner. That is, every morning I had to go change the trash bag liners. Didn't have to take out the trash, just had to put new liners in. It's a pretty kickback job. What it did was it got me in the yard every morning for 2 hours, and I would walk. In the summertime, a lot of people would go out in the morning. You know, it's real warm in North Carolina. And among those people were sex offenders. Now, sex offenders, I was looking at my wife because I thought she was trying to stop me. Sex offenders, if you don't know, play Dungeons and Dragons in prison. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the role playing, the fantasizing, but I can tell you that more than 80% of sex offenders in prison are Dungeon and Dragon nuts. Not taking away anybody who plays D&D. I'm just stating a fact. Most days in the morning, you'd see a table full of sex offenders out on the yard playing D&D. One day I was outside and it was a little early, and there was way more than usual doing what I thought was playing Dungeons and Dragons. 2 tables full of sex offenders, and every time I'd walk by, and remember I was doing laps are about 6 or 7 minutes, I can see them laughing and giggling and tee-heeing and all this little stuff that they were doing. And you know, it kind of struck my curiosity. Also, I noticed that they had 2 of them, that's 2 sex offenders, were posted up in front of the bathroom. Now, for people that don't know what posted up means, say for example, I want to get into a fight with Joe Blow. Me and Joe Blow, we just have to get it out of our systems, but we don't want to get caught. What we would do at Butner was we would go in the bathroom, because there's no cameras in there, and we'd have 1 or 2 people stand outside in front of the bathroom, keep anybody from coming in out, because we don't want them to see us fighting, and make sure that no staff was coming. That's posted up, keeping point. Well, I noticed that the sex offenders had a couple guys keeping point, and then I saw that some guys were going to the bathroom. I would later find out that what they had were images of sexually exploited children. Now, the #1 crime in federal prison, why are you looking at me that way?
I'm just listening.
The #1 crime in federal prison, I believe, as far as sex offenses, is images, downloading images of children in various stages of undress or worse. I have to watch what I'm saying for reasons of YouTube. What these guys were doing is they were filing for discovery, pretending that they were going to appeal their convictions. So, for example, if I am in prison and I want to file an appeal, but I want to do it myself, I'm going to file pro se. I'm going to ask the government for discovery. Discovery is all the documents, legal papers, photos that the government has used against you to convict you. So, in their case, they're looking for images of children, the children that they were accused of viewing that were in various stages of undress or worse. So what they would do is they would use that's taxpayer money. They'd file for free, will cost them a stamp, and say, tell the court that they're filing a 2255 or whatever motion they came up with, ask for material documents from the government. The government's then obligated to send their discovery to them, which included these photos of children. Groups of them would do that. So John and Paul and Jake, or whatever, I'm just making up names, sorry, John, Paul, and Jake, these guys would all file, they would all have the images that got them put in prison of these kids, and then they would swap them like baseball cards. So I got a little Johnny for a little Susie. Yes, that's sick. And there were groups of them doing this. So what they were doing, they weren't out on the yard playing D&D. They were out on the yard with folders of sexually
sexual activity.
I'm sorry, I got stuck. Sexually exploited children. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm stuck because I have to really watch my words. I apologize. YouTube, I'm being good, YouTube. So That was the first time I found out about it. And what they were doing is they would trade them. And the reason the guys were keeping point is because they were then going to the bathroom and basically using it as a jack shack for all intents. I guess that's a word I can use, but that's what they were doing. I will say that staff was aware of this. That was SIS Lieutenant Rigsby, who I knew well from different places, and retired a captain at Terre Haute, and SIS Neville. But that's a pretty hard job to try to follow that trail, but they were on it, I'll say that. A couple years later, I was in the SHU at Butner FCI 2. I was getting transferred. The SHU was overcrowded, and when the SHU was really crowded, they start forcing people to sell with other people. Now, in prison, I'm white, I sold white. There was maybe a few times going through transit or something, or when I first arrived at Butner that I didn't. I had a cellie, it was mixed race or whatever, but that's how I played it in prison. Prison's a real segregated place. I was always involved in white politics, and that's just what it is. They put me in the cell with the guy who I knew, the real smart guy, because I used to talk to him on the range, educated, he had all the papers, Wall Street Journal. I mean, this guy had all the magazines. I knew. I also knew that he struck me as wrong. Come to find out, this guy's first name was Paris, and what he was, you ever seen To Catch a Predator on NBC? They lure guys in, they pretend they're 14-year-old girls or 13-year-old girls, and then they have them meet. That's basically what happened to him. He was trying to talk or hook up with the 14-year-old. Now, I did not know this when they originally put him in the cell with me. I later found out when I went and did some research on his case. But again, Butner, when they are overcrowded, they don't care. They put everybody in the cell together. That's just how I ended up with Paris. I actually liked the guy. It was a pretty good conversation, but you know, and that, of course he didn't do it. He didn't mean to do it. But anyway, that's a whole different story. That was his story. I found out through Paris that at Tucson, USP Tucson, the same stuff was happening, only this was totally wide open. Swapping images of children, and you know, Tucson's a maximum security prison. You get some of the worst sex offenders in. So these were pictures that were really, really bad. But they did the same thing. They would go swap, have little jerk shacks or areas, or just go back to the cell. But I mean, really, really foul, disgusting stuff. Now, around 2015 or 16, sorry Brent, I forgot. Brent, we were talking, or he came to visit me, and he brought up the fact that he's been researching a lot of different sex cases with children. How that came about was a story he'll tell you, and I will be interviewing him shortly. But he started looking at statistics. One of those statistics, for example, was, I believe this was in a county in Arkansas, or it could have been the state of Arkansas, 11% of cases brought to the prosecutor. Only 11% did that prosecutor then take to court. So 89% of the cases that came before the prosecutor, they didn't even bother trying. Didn't even bother trying to get a guilty plea, anything. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not a prosecutor, and I'm sure they can tell you, but that's totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. But that's the truth. Anyway, Brent started telling me about the organization he was putting together, about the funding, the lack of funding that goes in to helping children that have been abused physically, sexually, and he decided to form his own company and start doing something about it. In prison, I started going to inmates and talking to them about their past. And I'm going to tell you something. So many guys in prison had mothers who were single and either had bad boyfriends or a relative ended up molesting them, fondling them, or whatnot. And I'm telling you, when I started talking to people, so guys knew I was a writer, guys knew I was a journalist. I used to get quotes from guys all the time. I used to do pieces for Vice and other magazines or online news organizations. And I would frequently go to guys and say, hey, listen, what do you think about this and this, the subject? What do you think about what just happened in Iraq? What do you think about, for example? And so guys knew it was common for me to go talk to these guys. So guys were always willing to share. So I started in about that. And I like I said, I was surprised how many guys opened up, but it just made me realize that the issues with child molestation or no, my wife's frowning. Anyway, the issues are there's really, really stark. There's so many people that this has happened to, and it really does tie into criminal justice reform. I've often said I'm all about criminal justice reform. When I get my life together in full, I really want to do something in that arena. It's so big, overwhelming, you don't know where to start. But focusing in on kids before they become criminals, the whole sexually exploited, sexually abused issue, it's a pretty decent starting point. I know that seems a little bit of a stretch. We've been working on it, talking about it anyway. There needs to be something done as far as the discovery process and what these guys are doing in prison as far as trading these images of children. I know that there was a law in Arkansas that got shot down. Shame on me for forgetting this name. But the problem is every criminal defendant or alleged defendant is entitled to the evidence against them. They're entitled to the discovery. But what happens when they're using that discovery material to further criminal activity? Because that's what they're doing. It's a crime to possess a picture of a child in various stages of undress or being exploited or worse, and trading it to different, those are crimes. You can have the image of what you were accused of, the child or children you were accused of, but once you have other images, that's another crime. And this happens every day. I recently, within the last 6 months, have talked to somebody in federal prison who has a sex offense, who's in sex offender prisons, and told me that the process has changed some. And this is what it is. Because so many people are doing these swapping, there's started to be some crackdown on it. And I believe the process now is the material has to be sent to the case manager or to the unit counselor. The counselor is then supposed to create a situation or create an environment where the inmate can then go observe, look at the material that the government used to convict him. That is the pictures of the children. So they do a lot of this on computer now too. But what they're doing is they're not staying in the room. And I don't blame them. If I was a counselor, case manager, I wouldn't want to stay in the room either. And I believe that if I remember, and I knew policy pretty well, I believe that an inmate has the right to see the material that they have without the presence of staff. I could be wrong. But anyway, what they've done at Marion, I know for sure, was a counselor, a case manager would get this material, images of kids, give it to the defendant who was convicted, and then that person would bring one of his friends in the room, or the jailhouse lawyer that's helping him. In federal prison, a jailhouse lawyer can assist you. So, hey, I need Bob here to assist me with watching these kids. You know what I mean? And that's the way they were doing it. Now, again, I'm going to say this went back. It was actually 2010 was the first time I got hip to this. 2012 confirmation coming out of Tucson that I knew of, and as recently as within 6 months, I've talked to the guy I know, and he confirmed it. You know what's going on, and yes, there are guys still swapping pictures of this material that they do have. There's definitely has to be some laws that we need to figure out how to change that, because those children are being exploited over and over and over and over again. A lot of them don't even know that there was pictures of them never ever even taken. You know, you get some pervert, whether it be a brother, uncle, friend, and they got you around your kid, and all they do is take a picture of your kid in the nude, and those pictures please perverts, whatever. You can see I'm restraining myself, right? So that's just because of the language for YouTube, and because I've got a lot more feelings about that. So saving kids rocks. Saving Kids Rocks. I would appreciate it if you go check that out. You'll be hearing more about scars, maybe not on the YouTube channel so much, but other platforms.
I'm gonna write the address of the website in the description of the video.
Okay, so Marta will put the website in the description there. Thank babe. And yeah, well, that's about it for now. Like I said, this one I did it the other day. We had problems. I wanted to really put this out there so people will know. There's guys in prison that aren't surprised, that knew about it, but there's other people that for sure would be shocked about it. And it's just a tragedy. It's just a shame. Anyway, it's Thursday. I hope you had a good day or have a good day. It depends on what time this gets posted. There will be a video tomorrow, and I will figure out live sooner or later, whether it be the weekend or we'll figure it out. I think we'll go live together, right, babe?
Okay.
Have a good one.